Hey, everybody, welcome to Movies Worth Talking About, where we talk and talk and talk about movies. I'm John Carlos, and I am joined today by artist extraordinaire Chogrin. Say hi.
Hey, how you doing, John Carlos? Thanks for having me on once again and
Yeah,
talking about one of my favorite movies and its sequel in the future as well.
in the future, yeah. But I think, yeah, the whole reason we're talking about Beetlejuice today, I think you brought it up. Like, you suggested doing it. And I know you're a fan
Yeah.
because I know for a fact that, like, when you make a guru figure, which you're
hmm
gonna be doing, like if basically the way I see it, if you're making a guru figure, you must really be a fucking fan because why would you put that much effort into something that you're not like super hardcore into?
Yeah. Anytime I do a gallery show or a children's book or something, it's got to be something I'm like, or a toy. It's got to be something I'm super passionate about. And Beetlejuice is one of those movies that was definitely part of like my childhood growing up. I
Yeah.
think I think like many people, like a lot of us, like probably grew up more with a cartoon than the movie. But it's all like it's all like intermixed.
Well,
So.
tell me about that because you did this come out when you were in Ecuador?
Yeah, so I watched it. I must have watched. I don't remember seeing it in the theater, so because I was like four when came out in '88, so I probably saw it on cable. I most likely probably saw the cartoon first, before the movie. But I do remember seeing growing up with the movie. Like it was probably on cable or VHS, and yeah, I loved it. I mean, I've always been a big paranormal kid. My favorite movie is Ghostbusters. So I love the paranormal, and ironically enough, I think this movie was made because of the success of Ghostbusters. There was a lot of studios wanted to replicate like that, the success of Ghostbusters and kind of do something similar in theme. And I think Beetlejuice is kind of a product of that, which is kind of like the snake eating its tail, because then later the Ghostbusters would chase Beetlejuice at Universal Studios,
Uh-huh.
the parks, which I actually remember. I remember in '93, that was one of the last times I think I visited when the Ghostbusters attraction was still in Florida.
So
Um,
good.
you would get to see like the Ecto One like riding into like the park with like the Beetlejuice on top of the car or something like that. I wish I still had the family tapes of that, but yeah, it was pretty memorable. But yeah, so
I remember seeing like commercials for it and like the shot of the head spinning and
yeah,
it had like him dancing over the teeth and I just knew I don't know what the fuck this is, but it looks weird and it looks cool and I want to see it.
yeah,
Didn't see it in theaters, but it was one of those movies where once it hit rental, like every kid in class was renting it. Every kid was, especially the schoolyard. The big thing that like every kid wanted to quote was nice fucking model. Honk honk.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because
Which, go ahead, sorry.
no, there's so many. Like the great thing about Beetlejuice is when I saw it when I was 7.
Uh-huh.
Not like there's stuff that really plays to a 7-year-old, but there's a lot. I'm not saying it's highbrow humor like Muppets where there's lots of layers, but
hmm
as I became a teenager, the appreciation for it, your humor develops over time. So when you're 7, you're like he said fuck, he grabbed his wiener, ah ha 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 ha. But when you're like a teenager and he's like, oh well, I studied at Juilliard and I attended Harvard Business School and I lived through the Black Plague, and like that
Yeah.
shit gets really really funny. And just as time passes, things shifted. Like it's to me that the benchmark of how I feel about this movie is all about like where is my sense of humor at in its development.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that like this movie is also kind of like Ghostbusters, where like it hit me at different levels when I was little. I probably felt it was probably scarier when I was like little. It had like, because the movie definitely has like it's very atmospheric. It has kind of this kind of sort of like otherworldly vibe to it. So there was a part of me that probably was kind of like a little creeped out by it. Oh, nice.
Oh, I'm
Um,
on brand today.
yeah. Um, and I think like going back, I mean, like, man, I did not want to bring so much Ghostbusters into this, but like even the Kenner toys were like kind of like in like the had like some of the Ghostbusters gags into it. Like the Ghostbusters had like these fright features, and obviously Beetlejuice like has that completely built into it because a lot of this stuff like happens in the movie. What I loved about this line really quickly, as by the way, I guess this is a good point since we're talking about toys. I have a Beetlejuice Guru coming out. Um, so that's coming out. I think we're going to be displaying the prototype at New York Comic Con, which is coming up. And then I think after that, will be available for pre order. So more details soon. Hopefully, by the time we do too, there will be more info. But really quickly about these, which is hilarious. I love that they had this like playful interaction that they all had shrunken heads, and you could kind of like swap the heads for each one. So I could take this one and put it on this head, and then take this one, which kind of gives you like a normal Beetlejuice.
Yeah,
And then this one spins. So yeah.
I only got one. We did not go down the big rabbit hole of a bunch of them, but I got it was like I think those like it, I now know it would have been wave two, but it was
Yeah.
basically the same Beetlejuice, but his suit was like neon yellow
Yeah,
stripes,
yeah.
and when you push it, he exploded.
Yes, he came apart.
Which is the same mechanism they use for a million. The T1000, you push it, the chest and the back break in half. The little torso spring loaded comes out. They did it
Yeah.
with a million toys.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Kenner. Oh man, that's a great toy line that they did the Terminator. Do you
Terminator was so
remember?
good.
Just really quick, I don't mean to segue, but do you remember that toy where you could like pump like the skin on the exoskeleton?
Yes, I didn't have it, but yes.
That was one of my favorite things like to do. Like I think I did it so much until like I ran out of the material. Really quickly on the topic before I forget, I think the animated show I think only had these Burger King toys made, which are really cool because you like turn them around and it's a different thing.
Oh, I totally remember those.
Yeah.
And
So
actually, right now at Five Below, for literally $5, they make a little animated Beetlejuice and Lydia. Like they're vinyl figures, but they look just like the animated style. I'm like, for $5, these are pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're like out right now.
Yeah. I just find it funny that they made so many toys for the movie, but like for the animated, like I think there was, you're right. There was going to be a wave two, but it never came out. So,
I think, I mean, I don't know how hard to call it a wave, but I know there was that first series of figures, and then the neon yellow Beetlejuice was definitely part of a later series. That's the one I got. I just want to say one of the reasons why I knew my girlfriend Tracy was like, oh, you're the one, is when the first time I went over, she has all those figures in the packaging on display, and then she had out of box the grave that you could like open up and put a figure in and close it.
I love that.
I'm
such a great trick. Speaking of, I have to, since you said in the box, of course I have this one open and I have one in the box.
Nice.
So yeah. I love this like Kenner packaging is so great.
Oh, and the artwork they used to do on them was so cool.
I know. So yeah, there's the tomb.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that I liked about this movie at the time, that and the thing about Tim Burton that always appealed to me is I mean I wasn't like a pale sullen kid or anything, but I definitely was not fucking cool. And I was not, liked by all the jocks and cool kids. So for a long time, a running theme in many Burton movies was sort of an outsider looking in, or oddballs and misfits. And Lydia is definitely sort of that for this movie. So anyway, when I saw Beetlejuice, like something clicked where I'm like, oh, there's a vibe here that I feel sort of seen. And what's been interesting is I know that like for a certain generation of people, like they also felt that way. Yeah. But as decades have gone on, and as those people have grown up to be normal and have their own weird kids, and Nightmare Before Christmas is so popular, and like sort of weird goth left to center culture has sort of grown. I don't want to say like it's been normalized, but like Beetlejuice is just a big comedy that everyone likes now, that they can still make, like the Handbook for the Recently Deceased and t-shirts at Hot Topic. Like it's it is the norm. It is just embraced as a comedy. I don't know if Tim Burton ever intended for that, but it's nice that the world has sort of accepted the misfit nature of some of that stuff.
I feel Beetlejuice has made definitely helped make the black and white stripes design much more popular. I feel like Beetlejuice was kind of sort of like the first movie, and then like Nightmare came out, and it was just like, man, like I know Hot Topic already existed, but I mean Hot Topic became an establishment after. So for years and years to come, and it will never die, because those movies will never die. But no, I felt the same way. And it's funny, I don't want to obviously want to focus on the first movie, but recently from reading, watching interviews with Tim Burton about the second movie, I never realized that Lydia from in the first movie was kind of sort of like his POV, like was his character, like the outsider.
Totally.
And it's cool to see like that then like reciprocated in the second one. But we'll talk about that for second part two. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Um,
I mean, let me tell you, just like from the get-go, I remember, so my parents rented it and I was excited because I'd seen commercials. But
yeah.
the thing that really clicked for me, or at least the first kind of lightning bolt, is the movie has barely even started. The Geffen logo, the Warner Brothers logo, and just the shot over the town and the music.
Mm,
And I can say this definitively. Like, I was aware of the Star Wars theme, I was aware of the Back to the Future theme, but this movie specifically, watching the opening credits, was the first time I wanted to read music
cool.
by and
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
learn, like 7 year old, where I'm like, Danny Elfman, who the fuck is this Danny Elfman? What is happening here? Because I
Yeah.
mean, you used to, I mean, I still to the, literally today, since I knew we were recording, I'll just be in my car going dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun. Like, but
It's almost
that was a major like lightning bolt development moment for me, was this score for the first time.
it's almost kind of like, like when you get classical music stuck in your head, it's kind of like it has like that vibe, like almost like a crazy Mozart, like, it's just like kind of like into this craze. Sometimes I listen to that soundtrack when like I'm really like on in the zone and I'm finishing a project, but it was really cool while I was working on this toy and just listening to that soundtrack nonstop.
Oh, I
I thought
love it.
I thought I was gonna get sick of it, but it was like, no, it's like it's great. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll never get sick of it. It's kind of timeless.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And the other, speaking of the soundtrack, the other thing I find interesting, as I got older, was that like the Maitlands, it's not just like, okay, there's a Deo thing and they sing "Jump in the Line" at the, she lip syncs "Jump in the Line." Like every time the Maitlands are doing something and they've got their music on, it's always Harry Belafonte. There's like 5 or 6 Harry Belafonte songs in this, not just the two that we remember. And I
Yeah,
always just think, like, what the fuck in like 1988 are these two people in Connecticut like so into Harry Bel? Like, I never heard of Harry Belafonte. Granted, I'm
yeah,
fucking 7. I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah,
my
yeah,
parents were amused, but like, I don't think we had the word hipster then. But like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
who,
It's it, I,
who the?
I,
They're not listening to the Police. They're not listening to the Cure. They're not listening to Madonna. Like, it's Harry Belafonte all the time.
wasn't it? I think like I don't know if I read it or watched like a behind the scenes thing, but wasn't it like the cast members that suggested Harry Belafonte at one point because I think it was going to be a different song in the dinner scene, and
Oh, really?
so I think I don't know if it was Alec Baldwin or one of the cast members, but they all were like, oh, you should put like jump in the line in this, and that's
I
kind of
mean,
how
it's
yeah.
a fucking banger and a great way to end the movie.
Well, and if you think about it, it ties the whole movie together because what I love about now consistently both movies start out with Danny Elfman's score, but it starts with like the whatever the song is gonna,
Day-o.
whatever the
Yeah.
song is gonna be for the whole that's gonna tie the whole movie together. It starts with like a little sample of that song and then shifts into the theme, and I love that, and I love how you're right. It's so like kind of like weird gothic vibes with like Harry Belafonte, which the original sequel they were going to write, Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. I kind of still want to see that movie.
I never want to see that movie.
I want to see it. I want to see it because I totally get it because it's like kind of sort of like those things that shouldn't go together, and like it could have been a train wreck, but there's a part of me I was just like I kind of want to see it. So
I won't deny that, like, I want to see like some undead tiki sequence in Beetlejuice with some neon lit, some sunglasses, and drinking out of like a skull thing. But
yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah,
just keep imagining Beetlejuice in a Hawaiian shirt on like
yeah.
the Weekend at Bernie's poster, and just like fucking, it just sounds awful to me.
That's gonna be Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice,
That's gonna be the third one.
Beetlejuice.
You know, it'd be funny if they did a sequence. That way, like
Yes.
wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He went Hawaiian, but I don't know if I
Yeah.
can handle a whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Anyways, yeah, yeah. I'll
but
let you stick to the first movie.
I do
So
like that you brought up like the mixture of like the kind of gothy vibes and this other vibe. Because another thing about the movie that I find fascinating is that, and this, Tim Burton leans into this a lot more in Edward Scissorhands.
mhm.
Uh, but this sense of like, because I think he grew up in Burbank, but the suburban this
Yeah.
very American suburban, and I like the contrast between not just the Maitlands and the Dietzes,
Hmm.
but the contrast between the dead world
Hmm.
and the I forget what city they're in, but I know it's supposed to be Connecticut. But when you go
Hmm.
through the town, when he's going to his store to pick up some shit, the
Yeah.
fire truck is like this 1950s looking fire truck
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure does not work. And then the
Yeah.
fact that there's like an old man outside the barber shop
Yeah.
and he's
Exactly.
talking about some he had hair goddamn down to here and just take a
Yeah.
little, like he's complaining about hippies.
Yeah.
I just love what an old throwback 50s clean cut Americana.
Mom and pop.
Yeah,
You would be. You would be.
versus nice fucking model, and
You would be surprised. I mean, like that's what I think I love about the movie. It's got that such because I mean, I used to live. I grew up in Pennsylvania, and the town that I grew up in is very much kind of like the town that it opens on Beetlejuice. It's very kind of like a time capsule from the 1950s, and like you go to the barber shop, and it's still the same barber. Like it's just like kind of like a small mom and pop like town. So it's great to kind of see that contrast with like this house, like in the middle of a hill like on top of the town that obviously has like two people that are part of the town, but then it turns into this kind of like crazy, demon haunted house like movie, which is like fantastic. So
and I look at that house, and I do look at like now as a grown up, and I'm like, one, that's a nice house, and it's real big, and it's on top of a hill. Like, what great. Like,
yeah,
I forget her name, but the real estate lady. I'm not saying she's right because I fucking hate her, but
yeah,
I get the impulse because one of the things, like, they do a good job making me hate her. The house isn't like up for sale. They're living their lives, and
yeah,
she keeps and so much so that they're like, okay, I'll do it this time. She just keeps showing up saying, hey, there's another offer on the house, because
yeah,
you two
yeah,
don't have kids. Like, get the
yeah,
fuck out of here. But you know what? She's right. It's a
yeah,
good
yeah.
house.
I actually that's one of my favorite Easter eggs in the second movie. I think her in the first movie her name is Jane Butterfield, and then the second movie is Little Jane.
Mm.
They don't so but which is great because you actually do see her in the first movie like in the back of the car or anything. But
Yeah.
you know what would have been cool talking about that house? What it would have been cool, obviously they built it for the movie. And then in the second movie, they built it again. I'm like, dude, just leave it up there. Just
Oh yeah.
like make it like a tourist attraction thing. Like, you're gonna have to build it again for the third one now.
Yeah,
So
it's like when they built Hobbiton and then destroyed it, and they're like, "Hey, we're
yeah,
doing the Hobbit the prequels. You know what? Just build it all for real."
yeah, let's leave it there.
And now it's a tourist, and you can go, you can stay, you can have, they have Bilbo's birthday there every year. Just
Wow,
do it. Just do
amazing.
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
but
part of it. Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I know I just get so mad at her though when I had to write the line down. This house is too big for you. It ought to be for a couple with a family. And then she like walks
Yeah,
it back, and I'm like, fuck off. As someone who
yeah,
doesn't plan on having kids, who has
yeah,
a
yeah,
house that could support, like, not your
yeah, yeah.
business,
None of your business.
get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here. But it I wouldn't say it's like a big theme of the movie, but it is in there where, they're driving to the store, and he's like, he's like, well, frankly, it's none of her business. But
Yeah,
he's like, but we could try on this trip. The
yeah,
idea that like they are childless, but they kind of want kids,
yeah,
and Lydia is a kid whose parents just don't get her.
yeah, yeah. And they
Yeah,
kind of adopt her by the end. Yeah,
yeah, like it's not a
yeah,
huge thing, but like the fact that she lights up and is comfortable every time she has a scene with them,
yes.
and that's all planted with the fucking real estate lady, who I really do just
What's funny, well, yeah,
get mad
and
at, dude.
she's relentless because like after having that awkward moment with Gina Davis's character, then like Alec Baldwin's like in the basement working on something, and she's like on the fucking window, like
Yeah,
hey,
but also that's farce. That's a good comedy beat, and
yeah, totally,
it's funny because one of the things, it's I don't ever stereotype Tim Burton in my head. I spent a good chunk of like my childhood, my teens, my 20s. Like, he was one of my favorites fucking ever. So
yeah,
but what I remember when Mars Attacks came out in like 96, and it was like this big ensemble, like Martin Short and all these comedic actors, and Jack Nicholson playing two parts. I
yeah.
remember he had made enough like gothy shit. Remember when Mars Attacks came out, I'm like, wait, Tim Burton doing a comedy? Like, what the fuck does he know about comedy? And then I went, Pee Wee and Beetle, like his first two movies out the gate were comedies.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like sometimes people forget
Even the first
how funny
Batman.
he. Oh, the
Yeah,
first Batman's fucking hilarious at times.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, but like the thing that tips me right off the bat is when he goes to the store, and the barber just starts talking, and he goes in the store to visit. He comes out, he's still just talking
Well,
like
and
that.
it's
That's a comedy 101 beat, and it's so good.
and it's funny because that original ending they shot with Beetlejuice shrunken head. You know how they
Mm-hmm.
put that? They kind of did that. I think they did that. And after they did a screening because I think audiences kind of wanted a stinger with one more scene of Beetlejuice. But they shot like various versions of that, and I think one of the original versions was Beetlejuice in the waiting room with that barber, and the barber just like, and let me tell you one more thing, and Beetlejuice screaming like, no,
Oh,
like,
I would have loved that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's online somewhere. You can, it was actually shot, like you can see it somewhere. So
Oh
check it
man, I
out.
did not know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's some movies where I have like needless depths of trivia.
Oh
This is
yeah.
one movie where I've never gone down like a rabbit hole of. I just
You caught
watch
me.
it a lot.
You caught me at a good time. I have a lot of concentrated Beetlejuice knowledge that will probably leave my head by next year. So
Oh,
it's a
okay.
good
Now it's a good time.
it's a good time.
Uh, I know a guy who he's a youngin. He's like in his early 20s, and he watched Beetlejuice for the first time.
Mm.
And what'd you think? And he goes, they died in like the most shallow fucking water. Like that is pathetic. And I'm like,
Well then on top of it, I think the windows were open too.
I
Yeah.
mean, my head canon is that
Yeah.
they bonk
It's
their heads.
it's probably the impact.
They're
Yeah.
unconscious and they suffocate because they're
Yeah.
fucking unconscious.
Yeah.
But that's and you know what? I believe that. That's
Yeah.
not a stretch for me. The way sometimes other movies, you really got to fucking reach to make some bullshit work, but that's fine.
Yeah. Every time I watch that no, after like watching it as an adult and watching Mythbusters, immediately takes me to that Mythbusters episode of like what to do if your car
Oh
submerges
yeah,
underwater. But yeah, you're right. I thought I made that like kind of decision. And it's cool talking about that car accident. It's cool. I don't know if it's later in the movie, but when they show the town model,
mm-hmm.
the car is in the fucking lake.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like the model kind of like replicates what like is happening like in real life, and then you know,
I've
and
never noticed that. My only hey, did you know is when Beetlejuice rises out of the model for the
yeah,
finale.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
top of his little carousel hat has a little Jack Skellington.
Oh yeah, with the bat wings. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like, I mean, it technically
Yeah.
wasn't Jack's, but it was a doodle of a skull that he used to draw a lot when he was, working for Disney, and it's clearly a
Precursor. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, and for all we know, like I think he had already had like at that time the Jack Skellington like character in that story because I think they were trying to pitch it to Disney already at that time, and
Yeah, they're
Disney
like, no.
no, we just got to wait for you to make Batman and make a bajillion money, a lot of money for another studio, and then we'll call you back and let you do your little idea.
Yeah.
So, so,
But
anyways,
there's so much that I love about this movie, both
mhm,
within the specifics and the bigger picture. And one of the things that I've really grown to appreciate because of I feel like it's a product of its era, is there's a certain kind of movie, and a lot of it happened like in the 70s and 80s when it comes to like pop entertainment. Well, not 70s, but the 80s, where like we don't over explain the mythos of shit. It just sort of
yeah,
is, and it's very casual, and we're just here for the vibes. And I've said this for about a bunch of other movies.
yeah,
I don't have a lot of rules about how exactly movies need to be made, but my one rule that I do stick to like every movie is how important the tone is, because
mm,
there are movies where like the story is very important and the
yeah,
details are important. There are other movies where the story doesn't matter for shit. And it's all
yeah,
about, does your tone navigate the audience to
yeah,
understand what they need to understand? And the thing that I
yeah,
like about Beetlejuice is that it's very loosey goosey about like they're dead.
yep,
Uh, we how did they get home? Doesn't fucking matter. They're ghosts. They don't understand how they got home. They
yeah,
went into why do they go to Saturn? Doesn't fucking matter why they
yeah,
go to Saturn. They go to
yeah,
Saturn.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
the
I also sorry, go ahead.
no, just like the way the handbook is hard to understand, but they don't, they go through a fucking door, And the next shot is them going into the waiting room for Juno's office. They don't have to show them going through the fog, and this is the path to this. We don't explain it, and you don't need to understand it. You just sort of go with it. And I really respect that the movie doesn't over-explain everything.
It doesn't overstuff. Yeah, and I love how real world the afterlife is. Like, I love how the handbook for recently deceased reads like stereo instructions. It's like this really fucking like complex, like, you know, thing that it doesn't make it really easy to like how to, you know, go over. I also love how the afterlife is like the DMV.
Oh yeah, I love it.
And then what was the other thing I was going to say? I also love how this movie plays with the passage of time, how like they're dead and like them being like in the afterlife, and they come back and the house has already kind of like already been made up like different. It's been like six months, you know. So I love that play with
Me
time.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
One of the little things about it, and it's not just that, it's the specifically the rules of the world. Sometimes I think when movies get too caught up on like, what are the rules of this? Like, I only very recently started thinking about this, and you shouldn't think about this because, like, when you're a kid, you're like, oh, you say his name, but like specifically, if you say he's in your model, he's lurking around, but don't call him. If you say his name, that'll bring him out.
Right.
Okay. Once he's out, he's little and he's in your model. Say his name 3 times, that'll bring him in full size into the world.
Yeah.
Once he's in the world, to stay, he needs to get married. How the what? Shut the fuck up. It doesn't matter. It's all just whatever. You know. Once you say that's how it works, the movie's tone goes, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And then, because the same thing is, once he's out, say his name 3 times, and now it's a bad thing. And he's like, don't.
Yeah.
So when I'm little, say it. When I'm big, don't say it. I never questioned that as a kid. It all just made sense. But if you really stop to scrutinize it, which the movie never asks you to do, it doesn't really make any sense. Especially when they're like, you say his name to kind of bring him out. I'm like, motherfucker, he's already in, like, his little tomb is already in the model. He's already here.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, like, you know, I'm sure somebody somewhere wants a movie explaining of how he got to the model.
I would hate that though.
Yeah, me too.
He's just in his chair reading the paper, and next thing you know is I'm gonna go get these 2.
I'll tell you this.
That's all you need.
I'll tell you this much though: the rules in this movie work a lot better than the rules in Gremlins. So, you know, but especially the midnight rule, because it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah, again, it's I just consider it sort of nebulous magic. It's not worth scrutinizing. And but Gremlins 2 makes a joke about
I was gonna say it makes fun of it. It's like what does he say? It's 5 o'clock somewhere, or like, or midnight. Yeah.
So if he eats something and it gets stuck in his teeth, he's on a flight and he goes over a time zone. Does that count? You know, it's got to be midnight somewhere.
Yeah. That's it. Perfect. You got it. Yeah.
Speaking of the little model and his grave, I will tell you a little thing. It's probably the only negative thing I'll say about this movie, and it's not even negative, but it is something that's always bugged me. It's very tiny.
Okay.
What's always bugged me?
Okay.
Is that they're little, and then they dig. They dig into
the cardboard.
The cardboard is the same scale as the actors.
I know,
but it shouldn't be. It should be huge. And they do, when you see the surface, they've made big cardboard with the huge zigzags.
Yeah.
There should be big chunks of that, but instead it says fragile
as little pieces of cardboard. Yeah,
it's little pieces of our cardboard. So the letters should be huge and not like. Yeah. Why is there real cardboard in there?
The first time I actually noticed that was at a screen. I watched it on the big screen a couple of years ago, and that was the first time I noticed it. And I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, why is the side of the cardboard, like huge cardboard on the side, like correct? But then like, why am I seeing like little pieces of actual like real like size cardboard in there? Like I'm like, you're fucking with my brain.
And I get what they're telling the audience, like it's cardboard, but I'm like, just make the big, just the tiniest thing. But yeah, other than that.
Since we're on that topic really quick, and not to bring back, like talk about my toy, but that was actually one of the funnest parts too when I was designing this toy, was to like create the base for it, because it was going to be like, this figure was the first time that like I was gonna go like do kind of like this thin body. So I kind of, just in case, I wanted to create a base to kind of support it. And I was like, what better thing than to have like the fake grass at the bottom. So I love the fake grass. It's just kind of like this rubbery, like I don't know what it is. I know that for some reason it was something that was, I think, that was either made back then or it was made specifically for the movie. But I know that for the new movie, they couldn't find the reference, so they had to like literally like watch the first movie really closely and like create a mold and replicate it. So
Yeah, it always looked to me like the foam that you would see on the inside of like a soundproof, like a recording studio or
yeah,
something.
yeah, 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 like the egg. What do they call that? Like it's like almost like an egg carton, like
Yeah,
Reese has. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyways, yeah.
Um, Another thing I like about this movie
Mm,
is it doesn't overindulge itself for the sake of, and maybe that's a limitation back then because Tim Burton, it's a second film, whereas now the sky's the limit with digital extensions and all that. But I love that. Here's my prime example. They draw the chalk on the thing,
mm,
the door opens up out of the wall, and it's just green light. It's
mm,
all it fucking is. And they walk in
yeah,
and it's just one source light coming out. And I'm like,
yeah,
this is so lo-fi,
yeah.
and it really works.
It's great. It's great. It's actually, there's a similar. I love, that's what I kind of love. It adds to that fantasy element of it. That's what I love about Pan's Labyrinth as well.
Mm.
It just kind of sort of like, that's another movie that sets up like, here are the rules. It's like she's got to collect three things, and she also does a little chalk on the wall.
Totally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's kind of, I love how movies like that. I feel like we live in a time where everything's over explained now, and I just love to just kind of go on a ride without like, just give me enough information that I can piece together and take me for a ride. So
Yeah, and not just it, but visual information.
absolutely, yeah,
Even when they get to the lobby for Juno's,
yeah,
there's just like some light behind them, and they're going through a spinning, rotating thing.
yeah,
I mean, we will touch upon this in the second one, but I kind of respect the second one also doesn't overdo it.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
and
absolutely,
and that's coming from an era where Tim Burton could, if he wanted to. But I
yeah,
like that he really does restrain himself to the degree that he kind of restrains himself in this, not restrains in this movie. I think it just is what it is. Like
right,
it's economics, but it's also creative choices and finding creative choices within a
yeah.
sort of limited economy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and talking about the first one, and I mean, and this is not at all like an Easter egg for the second one, but a lot of people are saying that there's a shot in the first one where you can see like there's people waiting in the back, and there's somebody that looks like Beetlejuice's wife that shows up in the second one, and I
Oh, I
think
call
like
bullshit on that. Yeah.
it's bullshit, but it's kind of like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I noticed that when I watched it yesterday. I'm like,
Okay,
there's a person that kind of could be, but
yeah, we'll
yeah,
save that for later. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely say that for later. Um,
um,
Let me touch. There's something also that really, really, really struck me this time. I want to make sure I'm getting the name right because
yeah,
I know sometimes um, Tim Burton would work with Bo Welsh, and sometimes he would work with Rick Heinrichs back and
yeah,
forth between movies through the 80s and 90s. And I'm pretty sure
yeah.
Beetlejuice was Bo Welsh.
Paul
Yeah,
Welsh, who married Catherine O'Hara.
yeah, and went on to
Yeah.
direct The Cat in the Hat.
Oh, that I didn't know. Wow.
Production designer for like 20 some odd years. First
And
stab at
then
directing a feature was Cat in the Hat.
he's like, I'm in and I'm out.
Woof, yeah. No, but I watched this a few months ago, and more so than, I mean, I've always appreciated the way the movie looks. Duh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It hit me like a ton of bricks recently. Just how important the production design is in this movie. Um,
Absolutely.
Not just the fantastical sort of death side of things,
Hmm.
and not even just the Delia designed sections of the house,
Hmm.
but even just the Americana, the Maitland's version of the house. I've never been more aware of how much everything is working
Hmm.
because all the elements are working within
Hmm.
these sets. I honestly have to wonder how much of Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin's performances would have been affected if they weren't in that living room, in that bedroom, in that house. Like, it really creates the space for them to do this. And I've never seen a set or a set design that has ever mattered, in my opinion, as much as the way it creates space for comedy. For like that lobby, it works that it's little.
Yeah.
It works that they're forced to sit like shoulder to shoulder next to, like, you know,
Yeah.
a shrunken head guy and a cigarette guy.
Yeah.
That dude, that flattened guy, got run over by a car.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there's these really creative things, but also like Delia's whole deal
Mhm.
and the way it contrasts with her husband and daughter doesn't work if
Yeah,
the set design doesn't nail her aesthetic.
absolutely.
It's the
Um,
most important piece of set design I've seen, and how it informs a story for
yeah,
this type, for this scale of comedy. Because I'm sure there's probably others. I'm sure
yeah,
someone's like, I don't know, Ben-Hur, you idiot. But I'm like, yeah, I know
yeah.
historical stuff, but it's such a big piece when you look
Well,
at this movie. Like, yes, the score, but like
yeah.
the makeup, the set is such a big piece.
Well, the house in a way well, I shouldn't say in a way. The house is a character in this movie because
Mm-hmm.
the house almost goes through on and off switch. It's almost kind of like the beginning of the movie is like these really bright like 1950s Americana, and then literally when the Maitlands like go to the afterlife and they come back, it's almost like a switch has been turned off and the whole
Yeah.
house is dark. House is dark.
Oh, and
And
you
yeah,
know what I love,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I never noticed this as a kid,
Mm.
is at the end of the movie when she's doing jump in the line.
The house is back
This
to norm.
It's
Or
both, because you
yeah.
go up the
Oh,
stairs
oh
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
half, and
Yeah,
then it
yeah,
becomes gray. It becomes gray.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
you're telling a story.
Yep,
They're living together. They're compromising, and
yep.
I love that. Again, it's really important. It's telling a story.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not like related to that, but a little detail I noticed watching it recently was that Lydia, like when we see like Lydia's room, I think only one time, but it's
Oh
adorable
yeah.
that she has like a little doll version of herself that's like across the room.
Oh yeah.
Um, and we don't see it like we don't really see it. We only see it that one time, but then I was like looking at production stills, like promotional stills of the movie, and there's like shots of Winona Ryder, and I think in her wedding dress, like by the tomb, with her holding the doll.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I was like, that's cute.
I love
So
when production photos do shit like that, and
yeah,
the only reason we know about some of these things is because of production photos.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, this whole movie is just like, and it was just so fun. It's so funny you brought up the cardboard because like that was the one thing I was like, that's the one. It's like the goddamn cardboard is what ruined it for me. But I also, there's also other like little inconsistencies, and I don't know if like because they shot like in different parts or they didn't like nail down the makeup just yet. But there's a one shot where Michael Keaton almost looks like he's not wearing any makeup. Like he's like completely shot like in a dark space, and he's like kind of like almost kind of looks like a drug addict. He's like kind of like this. He's like almost kind of like waiting to say, wait till you get a load of me, kind of
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah. But it's almost like if you really look at it, it's almost kind of like he washed off the makeup, and there's enough there to kind of sell it. But it's I was like, okay, that's a little all right. I'm like, it's still like continuity. I'll buy
Well,
it. So
there's one for me, but I always let it go because I'm like, you're nitpicking. Don't be an asshole. And
which one?
it's the fact that when he kicks over the tree, says nice fucking model, and you can see that it's got roots and everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then when you see them put it back into place, it's a much simpler
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
design, and it's just one little peg that plugs into a
The,
hole.
the little stump. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the whole like small like I think even the grass like doesn't like quite match either. Like
Yeah.
I've kind of
Like,
forgiven. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, the grass
But
doesn't
the
match. It's way more smoother on the model. Also, when she picks up Beetlejuice
yeah.
right before he does the spikes, they made him have a little arm. The little one has a little arm
Oh yeah,
mechanism
yeah.
to
He
make it
goes like
look like
this.
he's alive.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when you cut to the close up, his arm's not moving at all. You know,
Oh,
this is really petty shit, but
I mean, it's yeah, yeah. It's small continuity stuff. Like, I mean, I was just watching a video essay about like how much like not like continuity like does movies don't follow like just because like of editing and things like that directors will just use better shots and not worry so much about continuity. And as an audience member, like you're like if you're so like involved in the story, you're not gonna notice
Oh
as
yeah.
well. Like it's not until like you've watched the movie 1,000 times, you're like, hey,
I
what the fuck?
I am very aware of when like you could tell, oh, you cut part of the scene out and the ADR is helping fix a new story that you've created. There's movies where it's
Yeah,
very obvious. I'm not saying it's obvious in this movie, but for the first time ever, when Juno and Adam and Barbara first come back in after like 3 months,
yeah,
there's an over the shoulder shot of the two of them. It's over Juno's shoulder.
yeah,
And I'm like, I bet the scene was longer because she asks them something, but we don't hear it
uh,
or we don't
y-
see it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's subtle. It's not like the scene doesn't work and you could tell, but I'm like, I bet the scene was longer because that was definitely ADR'd.
yeah,
And I feel
yeah.
like I'll notice that blatantly now, but the fact that it's taken me over 30 years to catch that means clearly,
ADR is one of the biggest things that I've noticed in like older movies now, where like a character either says something off screen or like you'll see the mouth go like, and then
oh
like
yeah.
it doesn't sync up at all. Speaking of Juno, that's actually one of my favorite practical effects in the movie is that she smokes and like her throat is slit and the smoke comes out. It's great. So
And not only is it great, it's funny and it's subtle. And it's one of the
yeah,
things I really like about this movie is how deadpan some of the humor is. Like the way they play the lobby
yeah,
and just like that simple kind of music that's playing.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
that smoker is just like trying to quit myself, just like, and it's all, like Barbara looks at the shrunken head guy and he just looks, like,
yeah,
I'm a big fan, not just of Tim Burton's early comedy, but I think the two things that don't get enough credit, obviously you need funny performers,
yeah,
but there's two things that I'm a really big fan of when it comes to comedy movies is seeing when the framing matters, where like when to use a wide
yeah.
versus a close up.
A close up.
There's a lot of good shots in the lobby in this, and then also editing. Editing
Yeah.
is so important in comedy, and everything between the barber outside and the guy who got run over by a tire and just feeling a little flat, just
Yeah.
all that shit.
Yeah.
To Juno, because they don't make a point of it. They don't start on a medium and then go to a close up of her throat. She's in the middle of dialogue, and
Yeah.
while she's talking, she's not breaking. She's
Yeah.
making her point, and
Yeah.
we're trusting you to
To
find the humor.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
great example of like why this movie really works is
What
specifically that neck gag. It's one of my
there's
favorites.
there's this one gag in the movie that it's just like so like it almost kind of feels like I guess like it doesn't feel out of place, but it's just so funny. It's almost kind of like with those gags that you watch when you watch a movie over and over again and you're just waiting it for it to happen. It's when is it what's the name of the dad, Charles, in the movie?
Mhm.
When Charles is in the kitchen, they're remodeling the house and he's about to make some tea. And literally, her sculpture really bulges in, and you're like, what the hell? Like, what the fuck's going on? So I
And
was
he's
like,
really milking that like do 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 do. Ah, I'm in this Connecticut. I got my tea. Like
yeah, and like for a performance, I was like, he had to know it was coming, and he had to just like totally play it like, oh,
yeah. And if he
So
didn't, not to give him too much credit because he's a
yeah,
monster.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
there's a version of that scene where I can feel like I'm waiting for something, but he's really filling the space with a guy who's like soaking in this house. I'm
like,
here to.
gee golly, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's quite good. It's
The comedy,
it,
the comedy between him and Catherine O'Hara in this movie is fantastic. I love like when she like freaks out and she's like, if you don't let me like basically make this house like like I will go insane and drive and like take you with me. Like
mhm.
I know I'm butchering that line, but like I also love the character of I love Otho. I always looked at him as like a chubbier Bill Murray.
Oh,
I don't know why he always like kind of reminded me of like Bill Murray. I think he kind of gave like the smugness that he has kind of reminded me of the smugness that Bill Murray kind of has sometimes.
yeah, I could
So
see that.
yeah.
My brain always went to fuck, I just forgot his name. Francis.
Oh, from Pee Wee.
Only,
Yeah.
and it's and not just because like they're both not slim.
Yeah.
But when I
Yeah.
was a kid, I didn't really like when I'm 7 years old. I don't understand half of what Otho's saying about the paranormal and the when the bottom dropped out and
Yeah.
the colors. I don't understand him. All I know is that, and I didn't even understand as a kid. that when Beetlejuice, his clothes rip off and he's mortified, but the way he's like,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
runs
I get
away,
it. Yeah, because it's flat.
I always got Francis vibes, like.
Yeah, 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 totally, totally. And I
Now
mean,
I think it's hilarious that like of all the things you could do to this New York art pretentious guy is 70s leisure suit.
fashion, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know it's amazing, and the way the clothes. I don't know how many times they had
Oh,
to like shoot that, but like the
yeah.
way it breaks apart, like so amazing, like so smoothly. It's amazing. Uh, Also the voice of the mayor in Nightmare, right? I think
Yeah.
that actor, yeah.
He's the voice of the mayor, and then he went on to be that orangutan in Planet of the Apes.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Another quick little Easter egg is oh man, I had it and I forgot. You keep going.
I want to go back to Juno because we were talking about her neck thing, but
Yeah,
I have to give her credit in a movie full of scene stealing moments with Michael Keaton.
yeah.
Very very comedic movie. My favorite laugh, my favorite moment that gets me is actually one of her moments,
Mm,
and it's all in the timing and
mm,
not the timing, just the delivery. It's a simple inflection
yeah.
because she has like this very like she's like, whether help is needed, warranted, and available. He's like, well, are you available? No. Like, she's very like, there's a very kind of East Coast, I don't have time for this kind of bullshit kind of
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah.
So,
Like next.
so, and I think this is the ADR line. She goes, well, what's the matter? I wonder if there's a longer scene. I don't, because I don't know if that she elicits that, if Barbara's response originally came from this. That's right. But anyway, she goes, what's the matter? And Barbara says, well, we're very unhappy. And she goes, what do you expect? You're dead. And she goes, you're dead. It's so matter of fact. I will rewind. What did you expect? You're dead.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck.
Kills me. Like, you
Yeah.
idiot. What do you mean you're unhappy? I
It's pretty
fucking love her.
yeah, I know. She's great. I love the scene also with the football players. It's just
Oh yeah.
like yeah,
Oh, when I was a kid,
yeah.
here's a studio comedy telling me jocks are dumb and it's funny to laugh at them because they're dumb. Even when they're dead, they're stupid. I'm like, yes. Fucking thank you, movie.
That was
I
probably
needed
totally
that.
that was totally Tim Burton,
Oh,
probably.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet we don't thumb our noses at them so badly. It's still so great at the end when they show fucking dancing on the stairs.
yeah, 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 yeah,
In a weird way, the
yeah.
fact that like the Dietzes and the Maitlands have kind of
It's
crossed
about
the bridge.
it's
It's
almost
almost like the the,
yeah.
the weird little nerd and the outcast and the jocks can also kind of just
Coexist,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, no, and not actually talking to you about it, I was thinking, I was like, wow, it's kind of almost like a little like precursor, like themes, like Edward Scissorhands, like like small town with a goth kid in the small town.
Oh yeah,
I don't know how much of that was Burton like commenting on the script because I know the script went through. I mean, Sammy Davis was supposed to be Beetlejuice at one point, so I know it went through a lot of different iterations. I think it was originally an idea from what's his name, Michael McDowell. No,
yes.
that's the Malcolm. Sorry,
Well,
I should
Malcolm
probably
McDowell is a very famous actor.
right.
Yeah.
I think I've had him on my mind because I just saw that they released the ultimate cut of Caligula.
Yeah. That's a different movie for another time.
I don't think, yeah, that movie I think is like Kenny. I don't think we could even touch that movie.
No.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know if I want to.
Yeah. I think Michael, yeah, it is Michael McDowell.
McDowell,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And Larry Wilson. Yeah. Which actually is really cool. They were, I guess, like a duo. And I just watched this recently, and it's the only reason I want to bring it up. They had the reason I think they had a connection already with Burton is because they had written a short called The Jar, which I think is based
Oh, Edgar
on
Allan
a
Poe, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Or it was one of those like pulp magazines in the 1950s. But anyways, they wrote like a updated version of it, and Burton directed it for Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yeah.
And I watched it. I watched it recently. I had to watch it on YouTube because it wasn't available anywhere else. And it's great. I was like, this is like so many like little like Burton fingerprints and this short. If you want, yeah, anybody watching this, you should look it up. It's great. So from that, I think they kind of like went on to work on Beetlejuice after the success of Pee Wee, and I think McDowell. One of the last collaborations with Burton before he died was Nightmare, and I think he was doing a treatment for Beetlejuice too. So
Oh,
yeah. So, but I think he was an amazing novelist. I think Stephen King like praised him. So he was definitely a good writer. So yeah,
yeah. I mean, it's weird to give it credit for being kind of vague about the rules and call it good writing, but like it really is.
yeah, yeah,
It's a very tight story, and it doesn't over-explain the rules, and I give it a lot of credit. And I say
yeah,
tight story because, like, at the end of the day, it is very like I think the movie, like without credits, comes under 90 minutes,
yeah, 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 yeah,
and it really we'll get to how many stories are happening in the sequel, but this one really really is. We're the
yeah,
Maitlands. We don't. We're dead, and we just want our house. Get these fucking people out.
yeah,
And it's also like I'm Lydia, and I don't. My parents don't understand me, and these
yeah,
people kind of do.
yeah,
That's pretty much it. There is a sort of lingering B story about Charles wanting to do some business in the town. Like once
right,
he knows he can exploit it, we can make some money. But that really is the story, and it's
yeah,
really efficient at telling it.
yeah, yes, simple and clean, simple and
All it
clean.
needs
Yeah,
to,
and
in fact, like the climax really like there's so much about this movie that if you think about it isn't structured the way a normal script would be, where like
hmm
we plant Beetlejuice and we set up like the third act out of nowhere. I actually wrote it down.
mm,
At an hour and 8 minutes, Beetlejuice is like, well, I want to get out, and I'm going to see if I can talk to this girl into letting me out. Like the
yeah,
lingering threat is like, oh no, we can't let him out.
yeah,
That's never really in the beginning of the movie. It says, oh, we need this guy's help to get
yeah,
these people out.
yeah,
There's just a pivot in the last 24 minutes of the movie. There's just a pivot to, oh,
yeah.
Beetlejuice wants out. Ah, shit. It's really random.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
I love,
not set up.
yeah,
He
yeah, yeah.
when we see him reading the newspaper at the beginning, there isn't some like 2 minute scene where he's like, how the fuck am I gonna get out of here? You know, like it's not a
Right,
thing.
right.
He's
Now
just he's just a force, and you don't know what he's gonna do.
I
And
mean,
here's the climax of our movie now.
the only exposition that we get about Beetlejuice is from Juno. Is
Yeah,
basically
he used
saying
to
he's like
work for me.
yeah, he doesn't play well with others, and that's kind of like all you get. I don't want to say that's all you need, but that's all you get, and it's kind of great. It's kind of like makes the character more mysterious. I also love that the character is in it like 11 minutes, and that's something that they tried to like kind of follow through as well with the sequel. Yeah, and I think for this first movie it works amazing because you really kind of get to savor him and enjoy him at the very end, which is like the climax with the wedding scene and everything. Like it's just I love that scene where like it cuts to him like pointing at Lydia and she's already in the red dress, and then it cuts back to him, he's already in his
I love edits like that.
yeah, yeah. So and he like even combs his hair, like it's fantastic. So
Yeah,
um
like
I even love the house, like the chimney morphing, like the stop motion morphing, like of the chimney, and the little guy comes out. All that stuff is
yeah,
fantastic.
they never overtly explain like what is his magic. Don't
Right.
need to. It's fucking magic. I don't fucking know. Who cares?
Yeah.
To the degree where like we know he's a bioexorcist, we
Mm,
know he can come into our world when hired and turn into a snake out of a
mhm,
railing,
yeah,
but he can't just enter our world as himself. But I'm bringing this up because he can morph your fireplace, and then also once Barbara and Adam are kind of returned to normal,
yeah,
and they're both coming after him and trying to say his name, he
yeah,
literally looks at Adam and he goes, "Take a hike," and he just shrinks him. And
yeah.
like magic, little fairy effects happen around him, and you go, "Oh, okay." Like I never once questioned, like, "Oh, he can shrink people." You're just like, "Oh yeah, of course he can shrink people." I don't
Yeah.
know. He's Beetlejuice. Who gives a fuck? And the same
Yeah,
thing. He just looks at Barbara and sends her to Saturn.
yeah. No, you're right. You're right. It's like a lot of things like where you're just kind of like I think when you're selling a little bit like when you do a little bit of the setup of like a fantasy movie, like you kind of know like what kind of movie this is. A movie that recently kind of gave me that vibe that I feel like did it really well was Lisa Frankenstein.
Oh yeah.
Um, that movie, there's a turning point where you're just like, all right, well, this is the kind of movie this is, and I'm just going to go for the ride. So it's great.
That's
So
a good pull because yeah, that movie doesn't play by like contemporary over explainy.
no, no.
That movie really
So
goes on vibes.
yep, yep. So and this movie, I think the more you watch it, there is somehow a structure. Like the part that I always kind of not bothered me, but I would get confused is like, okay, so Otho has the book for the recently deceased. So, but like, how does he know exactly that the thing that he's reading is gonna like, don't they want to exploit them and like keep them alive? Like, why would they like be like, be going to like the realm of like the dead people, or that
Right.
kind of like always just is like confusing. But I guess it's like, okay, well, I guess there's like something in the book that makes them go there, and I just
Yeah,
have
like
to like,
once you summon them, technically, like maybe you're not supposed to summon them. So by doing that,
you fucked them
you're
up.
you
Yeah,
fuck them
yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
In which case, I mean, and I will say, like, I've always been grateful. Like Beetlejuice lived up to his word. Like
Yeah.
she's like help them, and he does. Like there's a version of him where he's that much of a con artist and a liar
Yeah.
that he fucks them over. But I really have always been like, he's not like a bad dude,
No, no,
but
and
he's a bad dude. But
but
he's not a
even but
bad dude.
but even because even in the second one, he does things where like, oh, he kind of saved the day.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh. So and I love like how nonchalant he is about it in the first movie. Like he's basically like when he's done doing everything, he's like in his striped suit and he's like fixes his tie and like is smoking a cigarette. He's like, he does his whole thing like that. It's like that's why I won't do two shows like a night
I
anymore.
won't.
I won't
I
I
won't
won't
do
do
it.
it.
And yeah, and he also he lives up to he saves them first. He doesn't do that bullshit where like, well, first you marry me, and then I
Right.
save him. Like he's
No.
like, well, it looks like I took care of everything. The only thing left to do now is uh,
Yeah.
and
I even
also,
I
go
even
ahead.
love that. I even love the little gesture he does, like when the Maitlands are like hanging, and he does kind of like this golf, like this kind of like putt thing, and they just like they crumble, they come back down, and they go back to normal. It's great.
Oh, and you know
So
what? There's it always. I don't want to say it bothered me, but it always made me go, ugh, it's eerie. Is when I don't care that they're getting all pruny
yeah,
and that the hands become all brittle, the
yeah,
jaw
yeah, yeah.
coming out. That's all fine. It's when the shoe falls off and you see the foot start to
Oh,
like
that
curl and like implode.
it's so
Like, what
sad.
is that?
It's so sad.
Blah.
But that's actually one of my favorite scenes. That's one of the best like practical effects scenes.
It's something. There's something kind of tragic about it in a way that like everything else doesn't bother me, but those
I
feet.
love like how like I also love how they appear in the suits too. Like how
Oh
like
yeah.
Alec Baldwin's head like coming like
Uh
like
huh.
I wonder like I kind of almost want to see the behind the scenes of that, like they had like the suit like hanging there. He's like, okay, Alec, now you're gonna pop your head in here.
Yeah. And I like to
So
imagine, is it even him or is there like a guy at the other end just shoving him? He
oh
slides
yeah,
through.
yeah, movie magic. And we don't even know like what like if they did it like from that straight angle or if he was like just like lying down and like they
Oh
that's
yeah,
that
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
But going back to Beetlejuice not being a totally bad guy, there's
mm,
also it's such a little, it's such a moment, and
yeah.
I don't want to say it haunts me, but like not haunts me after the fact. But like in the moment, I borderline almost get chills, and I only say borderline because it's not that kind of movie.
Mm,
But when Beetlejuice is talking to Lydia, and he's like getting some sun, some fake UV sun outside of
oh
Dante's
yeah,
Inferno,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and he's like, "Hey, I want out." She's like, "I want in," and he goes, "Why?"
yeah,
And it's like all performance because Beetlejuice is performative.
yeah,
It's like the only moment in the movie where he becomes like genuine, and it really like cuts me when he like goes, "Why?"
yeah, yeah,
Like every like between Juno going, "What do you fucking expect?" Like it's not great over here.
yeah. No, you know what?
He's
I'm
all silly shtick, but the fact that she wants it, he's like, God, do not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
ever come over here if you can avoid.
I'm gonna rewatch. I'm gonna rewatch that scene now that you said that. That's cool. That's
It's
cool. That's cool that you that.
it's one word,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so full of fucking meaning.
Yeah. And
The
it's
only
so funny. And it's so funny. You're right because he's like fucking lying down with like the trying to get sun and stuff like that. So you kind of almost like don't pick up on it right away because he's like
Yeah.
so like I don't give a fuck
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
watch
like
it. It's a very chilling moment of honesty. The only other moment of I feel honesty, and it's played
yeah
for comedy,
yeah
not because the why doesn't make me laugh at all. It makes me sad.
yeah
But when they're in the model
yeah
and he's got a stick and he's looking up Barbara's fucking dress, and she goes,
oh
"Hey, hey,
yeah
hey," and Adam goes, "Hey," and Beetle just goes, "What?" And like he really means it. Like fucking what? I'm trying to look up her skirt. What the fuck is your problem?
yeah. I love that scene. That's probably one of my favorite moments in the movie, like where like he literally like shows up and like Adam's like everybody's like hey hermano like and
They
I
shop
think
at the
I
same store. Yeah.
yeah, and I think that was like all like improvised too. Like that's the one thing like I didn't realize until watching behind the scenes stuff, like how much of it was like just Michael Keaton just like
Oh,
riffing. And I was reading, I this was something I found out later too, but I don't know. I got to find out what the interview is, but like I think he kind of was like referencing what's the guys from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2? Is it Carrot? Not Carrot Top. Um,
oh,
you
Chop
know
Top.
who? Chop Top. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. You definitely. I was like, oh yeah, it's definitely a little bit of that character in there.
Pale, circles, teeth. Yeah, I can see
The
it.
the voice a little bit.
Because the thing I always kind of forget, but I mean, I always think of Michael Keaton as an actor, and in the '80s, he started out with a lot of comedic acting.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, didn't he start out doing stand up too?
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
he never made a career of it, but he's a funny dude on his own.
Yeah, he's a Pennsylvania guy. I think he's from Pittsburgh. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But everything, I mean, like obviously, I've everything I've seen of him, he just seems to have like be like super genuine, super like he always was like like you said, comedy. So he was always kind of like on his feet, like ready to like improv and do things like on the fly. So I think this role probably for him. I know he had a really good time doing the second one, and it was for that same reason that like it's almost kind of like he turns into the character and it's just kind of sort of like, well, whatever the fuck comes out of my mouth, it's gonna be the thing that's we either use or we don't use.
yeah,
So
and yeah, I mean, I can only imagine how much raw footage they have of just
yeah, of
yeah.
different lines. Yeah. No, but yeah, that scene with when they first meet him is fantastic, and I love that that he makes them like work for it. It's like, no, you got to dig me up.
Yeah, that's and I love the tragedy of this movie that I always went, well, is that when like he's like, oh, come on, like come on side, like we'll eat or something, and he runs up the hill kind of excited, and I don't know if
Yeah,
he's faking it, but the fact that she says home, 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 I
yeah,
always want to know, like, okay, I saw you in a chair earlier, but I kind of want to know what is it like down there? I wanted to see. I was
yeah,
always sad that like, I mean, leave him wanting more.
yeah,
But my
absolutely.
curiosity was like, yeah, but what is it? What is dinner with Beetlejuice like? What does he serve you? I imagine it's gross
Well, we get a little, yeah. I mean, like
because
not to go,
save that guy for later. Like he,
yeah, not to get into part two, but we get a little bit of a preview of that in part two, which is like, I don't think it would be fun.
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be very traumatic. Um, but I'm trying to think. So, like, what else? Uh,
Well,
I don't know. You go
I
ahead.
mean, I touched upon this a little bit, but the fact that like there is no like countdown to like a climax, there is no like ticking clock. That it's just like this sort of random fuck up.
Yeah,
That the Otho and fucking Delia do
yeah,
this, and now we need help, and I don't know, Beetlejuice is gonna help, and now we have to get married. Like even just the idea of like the rule of like getting married, like it's so random. It's
yeah,
all just this sort of fantasy world that we don't understand. And I mean, I respect that like there is no ticking clock, that it just comes out of nowhere, but it's almost like I know, I always felt like there was a certain like slight level of like tragedy to it all, that like, oh
yeah,
no, the Maitlands are gonna die. And then
yeah,
once we find the solution, it's oh no, she's gonna marry this fucking guy.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
and in a weird way, isn't it sad that the parents have to watch their child marry this like adult deep, there's
yeah,
there's a certain level of accepting these accepting this fate based on these rules that you don't know. And
Yeah,
it's all played for laughs. But I mean,
yeah,
if you took the comedy out of it, there's a
yeah,
lot of tragedy in the acceptance of your circumstances.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, because I mean the parents are just there like they're frozen, just like
Yeah.
not knowing what to do, you know.
And also the fact that like Otho's dabbling with a book he doesn't understand, and like it's having consequences on these very nice people, you
Yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
Also, you can exploit them for your stupid fucking business. I'll tell you another thing that like as a kid I never understood Charles. Like I didn't, as far as I know, because they
yeah,
mentioned, I kind of forget his name, like Mikey or Mike someone, but Robert Goulet.
yeah, 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 yeah,
They mentioned more than once that you see him on the phone. When I was a kid, like that was a businessman in an office in a scene that I didn't care about. And then at
yeah,
the end, he shows up, and I'm like, I know that they read the book and the ghosts are appearing, but I don't know why Robert Goulet's here. I don't know what they're talking about.
yeah. What? Why is he here?
It
Yeah,
didn't make, yeah, like this isn't a funny guy. What's happening? Now I
yeah,
watch it and I go, oh, it's interesting that like Charles has this whole beast story about how like,
yeah,
oh, I want to get him, and he's like, oh, fuck you, Charles. And now he's like, oh, we could turn the whole town into a ghost place and blah 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 blah.
yeah.
And it's actually, first of all, the casting of Robert Goulet is fucking genius.
Yeah, my favorite line, my favorite performance of his in the whole movie is when like you can obviously you could tell like he doesn't want to talk to Charles, and Charles keeps talking, and then she hangs up on him. He's like putz.
You're right.
It's pretty good. And speaking of Robert Goulet,
Oh,
another person that like I didn't know growing up, obviously, but now because like I absorb as much media and things as possible, especially things from the 70s. Dick Cavett is in
yeah,
it. Yeah.
like
So
multiple scenes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He plays Lydia's art dealer.
Yeah,
Or yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so,
Basically,
yeah,
basically tells you your face like you're a
yeah.
terrible artist. You're never
When
gonna
I was a
sell
kid,
anything.
those two being cast were lost on me.
Is that and by the way, is that woman in that scene like is she a designer? Is she Otho's girlfriend? Like I don't like what's going on there?
I've always wondered that too. Based on
Yeah,
her look, I always presumed that she knows Otho. And at
yeah,
first, I used to think that their bitchiness towards each other was just playful. But then,
yeah,
as the scene goes on, I'm like, no, he really is an asshole to her. She doesn't like him.
yeah.
I did catch that.
He
I
makes a
think I
joke like
no,
he
but
makes a joke. She's like she's upset because
someone dropped a
uh
house on her sister.
on her sister.
No, but what's fucked up is he mentions like another suicide attempt. And I'm like, that's
Oh,
a shitty thing to joke about at the dinner table. It
oh
leads him to
shit.
talk about how they become social workers in the afterlife, and haha, we understand that, you know, it's
Yeah, yeah,
Argentina. But
right. Yeah.
it's a bold thing. Like and the joke comes out of nowhere. Where I often wonder, is this scene a victim of editing too? Because I don't understand the relationship. But Delia, before the dinner, she goes, I'm making dinner for 7 people tonight, because so and so is bringing someone who could get me into a gallery. So I was wondering if that, like, her art dealer who
Uh,
brought his wife also brought her, because she's the one who can get Delia into a thing.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she's just also part of the New York art scene.
Right, right,
And
right.
she's seated next to Otho,
Right, right, right. Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
they don't ever go like, hi, my name's Susie and I'm here to do this. Like, she's just there.
Yeah.
And
And I was
she's just this quiet, pale Burton, New York art girl, and then she's gone.
she's gone. Yeah, yeah. And speaking of the of Lydia's artwork, I think I was reading somewhere that it was based on Tim Burton's like friend or something like that that had done like these sculptures, and they just kind of became part of the movie, which is I think is great. Which I
Oh, I
mean,
love it.
which translate to very Tim Burton-esque. So
Oh yeah, no, there's, if you look at some of his drawings, even like the stuff like, you know, when he would draw like Brie Boy and Stain Boy, the proportions of like their heads to their bodies, I can kind of see the
yeah,
proportions of Delia's art. It's very similar.
for sure. By the way, I've had this book down here the entire time. I don't know why I haven't even showcased it, but if anybody is a big Burton fan, you should get this book. It's
Oh, it's so good.
fantastic. It's fantastic. So, I'm not gonna try to. If I find it really quickly, I'll show it, but I'm not gonna try to go through it really quick. I really love his sketches in here for Beetlejuice. Um, there's this one sketch. I'm not gonna try to look like. There's this one sketch that I love of the original version of him with a carousel with arms rolled
Oh
up,
yeah.
but his stripes are red, and I love that. It's great. So It's called. I should probably say what it's called. It's just called The Art of Tim Burton. It's great. So,
Did you
uh,
because I know it was made available other places, but I picked that up when they had the Burton exhibit at LACMA.
you know what? I've kicked myself to this day for not going because I think I was living in LA when it happened. So hopefully I'll be able to catch it somewhere when it's going around the world, or maybe it'll make its way back to the States at some point. I think right now it's in Spain, but no,
Oh,
I got this book when they made it available
okay.
online. So
Right
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad you mentioned Robert Goulet being funny
yeah,
because he also has a moment that makes me laugh. And it's not even the joke comes from someone else. But when Otho pulls out the book and
yeah.
Lydia's all worried, she goes, "Oh wait, what am I worried about? Otho, you can't even change a tire."
And he just got
They cut to Robert Goulet just going like I always get the sense that like I don't know if they've
yeah,
ever met before through circles, but I could tell that like Robert
yeah,
Goulet does not fucking respect Otho at all.
yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And the way he just sort of lets out this chuckle,
Yeah,
fuck, it kills me.
yeah,
Again, Michael Keaton, very funny,
yeah.
but Robert Goulet and Juno have these little beats that are fucking great.
It's great. Yeah, and I mean, and their exit is fantastic too. So
Oh yeah, oh so good.
they're probably dead.
Oh yeah, well they don't do one. They're probably dead. Especially because like some of the houses, the way houses are built now, they're built out of like much shittier wood because we try to grow trees faster and the soundproofing is shit. Whereas
Yeah,
like back in the old days, some of these houses that were built in the 50s and 60s will last for fucking ever.
yeah,
You may have
yeah,
to update gutters and update certain beams and shit, but like yeah, their brains got smushed. But
yeah.
also I love that they didn't do like the gag where they go up through the thing and then come out the other side. Like no,
Oh
they
yeah,
went up and they
yeah.
done.
Done. Actually, I don't know if the wife survived because I mean, again, I know we're trying to stick to the first one, but I know in the funeral scene in the second one, Catherine O'Hara's character brings up, I think, the wife by the last name and literally says her name, and she's like, "Oh, because she hasn't arrived." I was like, "Nobody's here yet."
Oh.
But I don't know if
See,
it's
see,
I don't know if it's that couple though. I don't know if it's that couple. So I'll have
this
to
is
double
why
check.
we're going to do a separate episode on two, is because I've only seen
Yeah.
the movie once, so there's lots of probably little things that I haven't caught.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, like because there's like the amount of things that are in this movie that like or things that maybe I didn't catch but didn't appreciate. Like what was much like Ghostbusters, and we talked about this already, but there's a little thing like when I was 7 years old
Yeah.
and Charles is pitching the town and we can get this guy here. You remember him? He's the genius behind the talking Marcel Marceau statue. That's a great fucking line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
7-year-old me didn't know who Marcel Marceau was.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lost on me.
Yeah. No, I mean, and for anybody watching this who don't know who Marcel is, look it up. It's even funnier once you figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
um, and I do respect that the movie has an emotional kind of climax
mm,
that and I was talking earlier about how like there's something sort of tragic about these people's acceptance. The biggest tragedy of them all is that before the finale happens,
mhm,
Barbara and Adam go to the other side.
mm,
Juno is like, shit, you guys fucked up. Now I'm telling you, you have to get them out.
yeah,
They stretch their faces out, come back, and tell Lydia, you know what? We're not going to scare your family. We're actually going to ask your parents and invite them to stay, and we'll all stay here together. And I'm like, oh, that is like,
mhm,
that could be the emotional climax of the story.
mhm,
Except then Otho fucks it all up and then everything goes to shit. And that to
yeah,
me is the tragedy, is that had they not read from the book, there was already a happy ending brewing.
growing, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
No, what?
I like the fact that they accept the Dietzes, and I like that despite all that, they managed to overlook all that, and the end of the movie is the house is half them and half them, and we still got there. Like we all still got there.
The middle point still happens, but like in any good movie, there's a bunch of bullshit that happens that you have to overcome to get there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but speaking of that, that's one of my favorite parts at the end, is because when they wrap everything up, they show them there's actually there's an original ending that they shot where the parents literally moved back to the city,
Oh.
and they're calling, like, I think they're what was it? Oh, they're talking to Jane, because Jane wants to sell the house again. And then she's like, no, you can't. He's like, the house is not for sale because Lydia's living there with the Maitlands. And it was basically the ending where like Lydia just lives there with the Maitlands are basically now her parents.
Which,
Makes sense.
I kind of get, like, yeah, like I get this. It's not
But
just that they're like a 4 adult unit. I really get the sense that if it, like, Charles is still being Charles, and Delia is still involved in her art.
yeah,
So it's telling that, like, Adam was the one that, like, we studied all week for that test. Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think
yeah.
Charles is helping his daughter study.
No, no, no.
Adam and Barbara are involved in her schooling.
But I do prefer that they went with the original ending that
Yeah.
they did, because they're still being responsible parents, and
So
she has 4 parents, but
I'm wondering,
yeah, yeah.
I'm wondering, is the footage with Lydia and the Maitlands still the same? All they did was shoot new
Yeah,
scenes of Charles and Barbara. I mean,
they
Charles and Delia.
I think that was the original ending, and I think the audience response wasn't good. And then they shot the ending where they shot Charles and
Delia.
Delia in the house.
Yeah, that's all we have to do is
Yeah.
insert that to establish they're there, and it's a whole different context.
And I love that their shot is actually together, because Charles is reading. This is actually my favorite part. Now, what a replica of this, of like co-living with
Co-living.
with the dead, which is kind of like a great just visual eye protein of like just saying like, oh, they're trying to make it work.
This is where they are now.
Yeah,
And the fact that he's reading it means that he's willing.
yeah, yeah.
And the other thing I noticed is in the background, like on the top of his bookshelf, there's like it's almost like a record, but I know it's not a record, but it's like Delia and her sculptures, and like
Oh yeah.
the name of like her art show.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's
Yeah.
kind of like now she's kind of like, and that's what I love about the first movie, is that you think, they paint her kind of sort of like kind of this bad guy, but then like by the end of the movie, it's like, oh, she's just eccentric, and that's the way she is. I mean, she's not like the best like stepmother, but like she's
Yeah.
she's trying to make it
Yeah.
work. She's trying to make
She's
it work.
selfish,
She's selfish.
and
Yeah.
she doesn't understand her energy's weird, but she's not.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fake praise. She's not the worst.
What I
But the
love
fact
about that,
that go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Not just the fact that Lydia's like, oh, she's sleeping with Prince Valium tonight. Like, just the
Which
fact
is a
that
line. Which is a line that when I was little, I thought like, oh, she's having an affair. What?
me too.
It's like, this character is horrible.
I didn't know what Valium was.
Yeah, because in that scene, she like her makeup's all like messed up. It's like, oh, she just slept with somebody. It's like so messed up. So like I totally read the cues wrong. And
Yeah,
like
me too.
obviously as an adult, I actually that scene is hilarious, because like they're like going woo, and she's like gets up and like turns off the TV. She's not bothered at all by
Oh,
it.
I
Like,
love it.
yeah, it's great. But from that scene, what I was gonna say is I love that they probably used the actual maquette of like the snake head of Beetlejuice.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah, to like scare Charles. And I love that little movie trivia, is that I guess they were shooting the movie, and the original snake would just look like a creepy snake, and it was like a last minute thing to actually make it look like Beetlejuice, like Michael Keaton. So they actually had to reshoot that snake scene. They kept like I think the shot where he wrangles Charles by the leg with his tail. All that stuff
Mhm.
is like from the original shoot, but the one with like the face that looks more like Beetlejuice was I think a reshoot.
Oh, I think I've seen that. Do you remember? Did you ever read a magazine that was published in the 80s and 90s called Cinefex?
Oh yeah, yeah, I love Cinefex.
I think there's photos of the original snake in Cinefex.
I think when I moved to the States, I started collecting, because I mean, all that stuff was new to me when I moved here when I was 13. But the one magazine that I started collecting was Starlog.
Mhm.
Because they had back issues. But yeah, I started getting into the Cinefx, but that's cool. Yeah, you're right. I think that's probably where that picture is of the original Snake. But yeah. Oh, by the way, I almost called the town New Haven, but I think that's Popeye.
It
I
is.
I think well, what's the town? I know it was shot in Connecticut, right? And
Uh,
um,
yeah, I don't know. I know they refer to Connecticut in the movie, but I don't remember the sign of the town. I know they show it.
I love how many videos there are now, like, because of today with YouTube and everything, like how many people like I think there's like somebody that has a video that's like an extra in the movie, and he basically like shows like here's a shot that where I pop up in the movie with Jenna Ortega. And I was like, that's so cool. That town is like, gonna have like, more stories to tell, like in
Oh
the in
yeah,
the
yeah,
in the in the Beetlejuice canon.
absolutely. I hope.
Uh, I hope. Yeah, 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 yeah. I actually, there's a shot I kind of weirdly want to see where, if they ever make a third one, where I want to see the sandworm literally kind of black hole the house. Like I almost kind of want the sandworm to completely destroy, like make holes all around the house, and then kind of like the house from Poltergeist, just kind of sort of like eat itself in, and that's how you like completely destroy the
Swiss
fucking
cheese
house.
it to death.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So if the third movie does anything, I hope it does that. That'd be amazing.
Well, it is
So
sound like a really cool visual.
yeah, yeah. More than anything,
I,
I want it because of that. I just want to see it.
I'm glad you brought up the sandworm because it's one of the random. I'm not complaining
Okay.
because I've already credited the movie for being random and okay with its randomness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I won't say the endings always bugged me because it
Hmm.
doesn't bug me. I'm just very aware that like he shrinks Adam,
Hmm.
and then Adam does. It's a 1-2 punch. Adam drives his little toy car into Beetlejuice's foot enough to like distract him so that he stops. But he sends Barbara to Saturn.
Hmm.
We make a big point, and the first time they go outside. Where the fuck are we? They do a second scene. They go in and out through a door.
Right.
He sends her to Saturn, and for no reason whatsoever, she just rides a sandworm through
Into
their
the
ceiling into their living
Yeah,
room.
yeah,
How does that
yeah. That's super
like
loosey goosey.
super loosey goosey? Now it's a cool thing because we've shown, we do twice. We set it up again.
Yeah,
Here's the payoff. We have a sandworm, and I always go, "Oh, the sandworm," and it eats them. Cool, but
yeah,
but then somewhere in my teens, I'm like, how the fuck does she get it into
yeah,
the fucking huh? Whatever,
yeah,
whatever,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
a lick.
It.
Also, go on.
No, no, no. You go ahead.
Also, the movie does a little thing
Uh,
that movies do, and even as a child, this never made any sense to me.
uh,
But I always just let it go. Which is anytime, and this happens a lot when someone is like little, like you'd see this. I don't know, like in a Honey I Shrunk the whatever the fuck movie.
yeah,
But when Adam gets shrunken,
yeah,
the toy model car has a combustion engine and fucking like an accelerator. Like,
yeah,
they
yeah,
always used to always do that, where toy
yeah,
cars function as real cars.
yeah,
Even fucking Gizmo gets in a plastic Barbie car,
yeah,
and he can, what is this little foot on the little plastic accelerator?
yeah, yeah.
And there's a
No,
little fucking alternator next to the little fucking battery in there. It makes no
it
sense.
happens. It happens even in modern day. There was like that trailer for that, so dumb that I'll probably see it, like that rock Christmas movie where
Oh
like
god, yeah, red one.
yeah, where they literally like there's like, do you have a toy car or anything? And like they click at the toy car and it becomes like this drivable like
Yeah,
big car. So
it's
movies.
no, it's been a thing in movies for a long time. I'm not complaining, but I'm just pointing out this movie does that thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
even as a child, I was always like, hey, because I had fucking toy cars, and underneath it was just metal with a screw in it and a little metal pin holding on some plastic wheels. There was
there's no
nothing inside those goddamn cars.
there's no engine there, bro. Yeah,
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 get the
yeah.
fuck out
So
of here.
I also love like that he like runs into his shoe, and then like the thing he decides to like oh, it's Barbara's teeth, right?
Yeah,
Oh my God. Yeah, sorry. The scenes happen so fast. By the way, that shot, like is I love how practical this movie is. I love how quick that shot is. They probably had Gina Davis like
Oh
there
fuck
really
yeah.
quickly, and then they probably just like threw on that prosthetic like on her face because it's so quick, it's so
I
good.
have gone back and watched it in slow-mo to see like the the end of one shot and the start of the next don't line
Yeah,
up 100%, but they line up really fucking
because
close.
it's mostly like probably her reaction because she does a little bit of like a head
She
back.
reels back and then they
Yeah,
match. Yeah. It's a
yeah,
great
yeah,
edit. It's so
yeah,
good.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I can't. It's one of those movies that just kind of sort of just lives in the back of my head, and you know, I would love a someday like a crossover with Ghostbusters, maybe like an animated form. It would be
Yeah,
great. It
I
would
don't
be
know. I don't
great.
know about live action, but yeah, like
Uh,
it, those are the two. There's nothing about them tonally that makes me go, "Oh, in the same universe." But
yeah,
it's one of the few franchises where I allow my brain to go, "Well, they're ghosts. They're
yeah,
Ghostbusters. This would work."
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
And
love it.
there's enough bullshit in like the Tobin Spirit Guide and like all the like Ray
Yeah.
Stans would have a copy of fucking the handbook for recently released. He would have it at his bookstore.
Yeah. What is
He
that
would
the
know it. He would
what
know
ver
it.
what version is that? Is that the journal?
Yeah, it's just a blank journal.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love how many versions they made of that. I
Yeah,
love that
over the
they made it into a
I like
popcorn bucket.
oh yeah. But when this one came out, I want to say a handful of years ago, I liked the size of it. I thought
Yeah.
because there's some other ones that are a little more janky.
Yeah.
Or like their notebooks with like a spiral ring, and I'm like, no, it needs to look like a book. What's going on
Look,
here?
it needs to look like the actual thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope they release like an actual replica of it because they looks like they put enough pages in the new movie where like, oh, this could actually be like a thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
uh
And I have some thoughts on that. We'll definitely talk about those next time. Do you have
no
anything
that
else about this
uh
movie you want to before
uh
I wrap us up?
uh let me see. Yeah, this movie is just like that perfect hodgepodge of like it's one of those movies that whenever the spooky season comes around, which for me is all year round, but you feel it more in October, and it's one of those movies that has to like play, like in the background or be part of the playlist somehow.
Mhm.
And mostly, I think probably because of the Danny Elfman soundtrack. But yeah, just like I never, it's just one of those movies where like it gets better each time I watch it. Just like Michael Keaton's performance is just amazing. I'm trying to think. Just seeing it, it always like boggles my mind seeing Alec Baldwin is like unrecognizable
Oh yeah.
because he looks so young and Gina Davis. I have to admit, during that time, I think growing up, I thought Gina Davis was Sigourney Weaver, or like I kind of because they kind of had the same hairstyle. So
Hmm.
I had I Sigourney Weaver was one of my first crushes, and Gina Davis was probably like I don't want to give her a number two, but was followed through after Sigourney Weaver. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we didn't give them like that much, credit over the course of
yeah,
this discussion, but I mean, as your two leads,
yeah,
and they're not too like saccharine or annoying, but they're kind of dweeby and they're kind of sweet, and they're not so overly sweet.
yeah.
But yeah,
That would
if you told me, well, he's got glasses and he makes models, like you go, oh, this is gonna be a dork. But he's
yeah,
not, but he's still believable. And I love it's the little thing where they're about to go downstairs, but then like he pulls her onto the couch and a little smooch.
yeah,
But then he's like, okay, I'll go. And then she pulls him. I'm like,
yeah.
you
It's got
two.
the chemistry is yeah. You're right. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. The chemistry is really good, and it's later complemented in the movie even when they transform.
Oh yeah.
So I also love like how there's like the one scene when they're trying to scare them the first time and like she's in the I think she's like hung herself in the closet and like she just like Catherine O'Hara's
Oh,
character just like moves her to the side. She's like, what the fuck? So
oh, all
yeah,
that like that. I mean, that was I don't want to say a turning point for me, but I'm like, I was 7 years old watching this with my parents, and I don't think they knew that there was gonna be like a severed head
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
a
she's like
dead
with his head,
body.
and the
And
knife, yeah.
I was just like, what
What?
is and it's being played for laughs. And I'm like, this is fucking great.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, even even again, I don't want to say it taught me comedy, but I was learning like what can be funny. Remember when they're the cars hanging out over the edge and there's
Yeah.
one plank, and when
Oh, the dog.
Alec Baldwin looks, it's not just the dog. It's the
Yeah.
fact that like when he looks, like this big old organ cue plays, like this
Yeah,
is the danger, this is your doom, your fate.
yeah, yeah.
Like Danny Elfman's music is a big part of why that comedy beat works. Besides the visual of just like a plank with a dog, like
I also love how, like, I mean, it's probably not on purpose at all, but I love how like that kind of bridge then later comes back in Sleepy Hollow
oh
for another effective death scene. So
oh yeah.
um
I thought you were gonna say, because if I'm not mistaken,
yeah.
in Beetlejuice, when they show that bridge, there's a little sign that says like, keep your dogs on a leash or something. Like
Oh shit.
there's a
I
sign about dogs next to it.
that's amazing. Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
dig that. Oh, speaking of Beetlejuice, because it's tied to the first movie. I love how the new movie starts like in the real town. It's kind of like the first one starts with
Oh, it's
the
a good
real town,
payoff.
then it turns into the model. But I love it that in the model the car is in the river still, and then we see little miniatures of Adam and Barbara.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was really cool.
shoot. Yeah.
It's kind of like a little wink, wink.
I will
So
never forget. I think the first time you find out it's a model, because like, do you remember not knowing?
yeah, yeah, no, not at all. Because then the
And then a
spider,
fucking spider comes over. And
yeah,
I remember like my mom be like, "Oh my god!"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It worked. Whenever Tim Burton like wanted you to feel, my mom screamed. Oh, it's
Oh,
great.
and then if whoever lives in the LA area right now, Warner Brothers has a lot of props from the first movie and the second one. I think it's the WB store in Burbank, but it's also where you go to get like the studio tour for Warner
Oh
Brothers.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that I visited it. It's really cool, and I think they're gonna have it up till like Halloween. So
Oh,
I
that's cool.
thought it'd be worth mentioning. The model is there. The
Well, this will be.
part of
Oh,
the model.
the model. Okay.
The part of the model. Yeah, the house. You can see the house and everything. It's cool.
Well, this episode will be dropping a few days before Halloween. So if you're watching this now, like on 28th or 29th, you have a few more days to go.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man. No, I mean, this movie's a blast. I had a blast talking to you about it, and I'm excited for part two. So,
Yeah, we'll try to do that in the next like month or so.
yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a movie I watch literally, if not every year, almost every year.
Wow.
And and I definitely watched it twice this year. And I'm glad we're doing this in October because it was just the right time to get the right spooky vibes. And yeah, definitely one of the top tier Burton movies.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Um,
well, it was actually that I'm glad you reminded me of something that I wanted to say. This is, I feel, the movie that cemented Burton. Like this is the movie. Like I know Burton. Like when he was working at Disney, he was trying to make Frankenweenie for the first time. One of the things that they said is like, oh, it's too scary. Like it's gonna be too scary for kids and all that stuff. But I feel like this is the movie that kind of like, oh, this is like my type of humor, my style. Like, and what kind of sort of like, oh, people are like, we get it.
right. That's the thing, is he did the thing, but it's the audiences were here for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
from a
yeah,
business standpoint, it shows that you can keep letting him do stuff and people will come and you'll make money. But
yeah,
yeah, you're right. Any naysayers that were like, oh, I don't know, this Night Before Christmas, we don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, this for the public, this cemented him as a guy that people would want
Yeah.
to go to.
Yeah, and not to and also like I'm gonna say one more Beetlejuice thing, and it's tied to the second one, but it's kind of sort of like not really because it was like the potential sequel. I love that actually no, it's tied to the first one. The first, I think one of the first names for the movie in their original, the studio wanted to call it Ghost House,
I remember reading about that.
and I
It's
find
not a
it
good name.
I know, and I find it hilarious that Burton kind of sort of did like a wink wink to that in the second movie because that's the name of Lydia's show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing I was gonna say is that I secretly want Burton to not only do a Beetlejuice trilogy, I want my Batman trilogy completed. So,
I was gonna
it
say, I mean, you got the Flash if you wanted.
doesn't
I don't
doesn't
know.
doesn't that doesn't count. Doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
need
I don't I don't know if we'll ever get that Batman, but I think
We'll
a
get
Beetlejuice is definitely a possibility.
yeah. I mean, it's made almost half a billion now. So
Yeah.
worldwide. So I'm
And
stoked.
I don't even know if he has it, if he's like, I want to do a third, but it's like, you fucking named the second one Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. You
Yeah, come
like
on.
are obliged to do a third at this point for the
Yeah,
name alone.
come on, dude.
Otherwise,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That was the other thing I was gonna add. I love that the you know how movies have working titles. I love
uh-huh.
that the second one was called the secret name for it was called Blue Hawaii.
Nice.
It was like a nice little homage
Hawaii,
to like
yeah.
yeah. So, anyways,
Actually, and lastly, I just want to point out because we didn't talk about this at all, but I've always found it interesting that like when I was a kid, I was like, wait, what?
yeah,
The movie's called like Beetlejuice.
yeah,
Like it's the word
yeah,
beetle and the
yeah,
word juice.
yeah,
But like the classic spelling is, like Betelgeuse. That
yeah.
is Beetlejuice.
Hmm.
Um, and in the text of the movie, it's spelled that way, and
Yeah.
people even people mispronounce it. They call them Beetle guys.
Beetle guys, yeah.
For the longest time, I never understand. It wasn't until we got a little bit older, but I still think it's funny that like there's no way in fuck they were ever going to release a movie called Betelg. Like they're like, no, just
Yeah.
spell it how it's
Yeah.
fucking pronounced. Spell it out. That's the name of the movie, even though nowhere in the movie
Yeah.
is it actually spelled out. So,
I also that's actually one of my favorite things in this movies too is the inconsistencies, like how it's spelled like that in the movie, but the movie is spelled like that. But in the original one, the opening titles, Beetle and Jews were slightly separated.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so
In
there's
the
yeah, in the
yeah.
opening. Yeah, yeah. So I just there all the like
Well,
little
the
things like that.
the fallout from that, and this is not important, but these are things that like annoy me.
Yeah.
The fallout is that they make merch. Like I'm really really happy. We have the little replica of the tombstone.
Yeah.
It's not full scale, but it's like 3 feet tall. It's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
plastic. It lights up, and
Yeah.
it says here lies Beetlejuice, and it's spelled correctly.
Right.
Whereas I remember I got really excited 2 years ago at the fucking Spirit Halloween store. They made the Beetlejuice light up sign,
Yeah.
and they had one, and I'm like, whoa! And I grabbed it, and as I was going to the register, I noticed that it was spelled like this. But
Oh
in the
shit.
movie, it's not spelled like that,
Like
and I
that. Yeah.
immediately put it back because I'm like, if it's
It's not
not Beetle
accurate.
Guys, correct? No, it's not accurate. And there's so much merch where they spell Beetlejuice out when it's not spelled out on the thing they're making. It
Yeah. Yeah,
bugs me
yeah.
so much.
I know. Yeah, yeah. I yeah, it's one of those movies that I just like it's so weird that you just kind of go with whatever it throws at you. And I love that well, we'll save this for the second one, but I love that the second one did a lot of that in spirit. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. We'll talk more about the second one, but I will tease. There's things I like about the second one. It'll be a good time.
I loved
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
no
and I
spoiler
liked it
no
quite a bit. So
yeah,
we'll get to that next time.
yeah, yeah.
So thank you for joining me. It's
Thank you for
always a
having me.
pleasure.
Yeah, always a pleasure, my friend. And I'll come better dressed next time.
Doesn't matter.
Better themed, I should say. So and
Sure.
hope and hopefully with a prototype of my toy.
Yeah.
So if not, we'll throw another picture up again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Until
All
next
right.
time.
Bye.